This podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football, and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network. Every club, every day.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Liverpool Podcast, brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. I'm Adarsh Ramchurn and Liverpool are out of the Champions League. Losing on penalties to PSG. It was 1-0 on the night to PSG. 1-1 on aggregate, and it went all the way to penalties and Liverpool lost. Missed penalties from Darwin Núñez and Curtis Jones. PSG scored all their penalties with Desiree Doué scoring the winning penalty for PSG. I'm going to touch on the main talking points, the two legs, and where this leaves Liverpool going into the cup final on Sunday. An opportunity to bounce back on what's been overall pretty disappointing 2 games against PSG. And I think that's my main starting point. And I think when we look at Arne Slott, and look, it would have been miraculous for him to win the Champions League and the Premier League and a cup, the Caraboa Cup or the FA Cup. Any trophy in his first season would have been incredible. And I think it's easy to say that at the beginning of the season or at the end of the season, but at this moment in time, it's quite hard to hear because we had a great chance of winning this competition. But yeah, PSG, I think, over the 2 legs, if I'm going to be completely honest, probably deserved to go through in terms of how they kept the ball. They didn't create as many chances in the second leg than they did in the first leg, but they have that desire, that energy that I think got them over the line against us. And obviously, penalties is kind of a lottery as well. But yeah, there's a lot to sort of digest and dive into. I think going into the game, I think the biggest surprise for me was the starting 11. I'm not someone who usually criticises Arne Slott for his team selection, but I think if you're going with the same team that started in Paris and didn't play well, got essentially battered for 90 minutes, even though we won 1-0, that's a big question mark because I don't think you start the same team. And I think he's been showing a lot of loyalty to some players where maybe he just needs a bit of rotation, a bit of freshness. The team look absolutely I know we're playing extra time, that is a big caveat, but we look absolutely shattered towards the end of the game. PSG had more energy, more enthusiasm, more youth about them as well. We've got a squad of players that can, fill in for a number of positions. We've seen that already parts of this season, but particularly last season when we had a lot of injuries, players stepping up. And I think one of my criticisms for Slott, and there's not been many this season, is that he's kind of kept the same team. So yeah, I was a bit surprised with the team selection. I think maybe I would have liked to have seen Elliott, Núñez, Jones start the game. I think given the intensity, I think Núñez would have been much better preferred to Jota, who really didn't offer anything going up front, playing down the middle, in the match. And I think, yeah, PSG's midfield 3 really put on a clinic, if I'm allowed to say, because I just think our midfield has been so dominant this season in a lot of games, but I've never seen us as passive against that midfield of Neves, Vitinha and Fabian Ruiz. I think they just can keep the ball, dictate tempo and play the game at their own pace. And I think if I look at the last 2 legs, and I know the one thing about Slott is that he likes control and he likes to play, at his own tempo, but we did not dictate control. It's a bit harsh to say over the 2 legs because there were patches. I think the second half today we were brilliant. Just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. And I think a lot of it's down to possession and how we control the game. And I think PSG probably edged that. But I think in the first half, if we look at Dembele's goal was just a simple ball through the middle of the pitch. He picks up the ball, plays it to Barcola, who plays it back to them. He plays it into the middle of the pitch, into the box, and Konate trying to block it, inadvertently plays it to Dembele, who taps it in. And that's the early goal that PSG really needed, because it kind of let them settle into the match. And I think we were on top before that. We had chances. Salah had a couple, Diaz as well. And yeah, we were just not clinical enough today. The chance creation was there. I think there was points during the game as well where we will get to the edge of the box and then just recycle it and then cross it and then not really have anything and not really have any other ideas. And then we did have chances from set pieces where I thought we looked most threatening. When I look in the second half, I look at chances for Kwanzaa, Van Dijk. In the first half, Konate I think might have had a header, or Diaz, one of them. Jota had that clear header as well. So there are chances in the game we can look at, but at the end of the day, I don't think we've done enough over the 2 legs, and that's going to be like probably the biggest criticism for Arne Slot this season when we look at the Champions League games. But yeah, I'm still processing everything. I mean, the penalty misses will come on to in a second, but I think in that second half we did come out fighting a bit more, showing a lot more determination, creating chances, that intensity. Anfield was rocking at the beginning of the first half. We had that disallowed goal. Szoboszlai, Trent going off injured really killed us. I think we lost that creative spark. I think he was having an absolutely amazing game. He was getting into midfield, getting into pockets, creating chances, crosses, playing passes. He had shots from outside the box as well. And he just gets that injury, which I hope is not too serious, because I think given how much pain he's in, you don't really see Trent lying on the floor as well. So I think that was the big turning point in the game where Liverpool are on top, we're dominating. Trent's the player that's going to start dictating the tempo and create those chances like he usually does from right back, traditionally under Klopp, but not so much under Slot. But it looked like he was doing that a lot more. But yeah, the injury is really, really worrying, especially with the cup final on Sunday. Kwanzaa comes on, who I thought did brilliant, to be honest. I thought defensively against Doué and then Dembele, who's coming onto that side as well, I thought it was excellent, but he just doesn't offer the same qualities as Trent going forward. But I think after that was a turning point. I think Diaz he had his moments going up and down on that left-hand side, but again, he's brilliant to a certain point, and then he just doesn't have that final end product, which Gakpo offers. Gakpo comes on, he doesn't look match fit, in my opinion. He's looking leggy, tired. I was a point in the second half of extra time where Gakpo's just come on the pitch and he's like jogging, and I'm like, that's not Gakpo. That's not Gakpo. He's clearly not fit. He's fully fit Gakpo this season, which you've seen, who's been clinical, is running up and down the pitch, running down that left hand side, creating chances. I don't remember him touching the ball in that second half, or when he came on in extra time. So I think Liverpool players, like we said, we could say we were a bit unlucky, but also I think we were a bit off it in both games, and that's credit to PSG. I think a lot of that has to go to Luis Enrique and how he set up the team, especially after that first leg where we've gone in 1-0, probably not undeservingly. Well, not probably, definitely undeservingly, and yeah, we've just kind of capitulated a little bit. But yeah, we're going to go to a break, but I'm going to cover the penalty shootout after the break.
Your body is unique. And Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right level to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
Amazing. So yeah, going back into the game, we're going to touch on the penalty shootout, which is obviously the deciding factor of the game. PSG winning the toss and also going first, which I think a lot in sort of today's sports psychology kind of helps you win the penalty shootout. You need to win those sort of tough battles, and that's where I can say PSG maybe got their luck throughout that game. Particularly in that moment, obviously, for the penalty shootout. And they start off with who took their first penalty? I can't even remember who took their first penalty now. Vitinha taking their first penalty, clinical. Salah does his job, but yeah, Ramos scoring and then Nunes. And I in the back of my head, I'm backing Nunes as he's walking up to the pitch, but there's always that lingering thought, and it's so hard to get out of your head. as a Liverpool fan, no, not even just as a Liverpool fan, if you're Darwin Núñez, he is just 1 minute he's our game changer. He's a game changer off the bench. He's saving our skins. He's putting in tackles. He's amazing. The next minute he is a League Two striker at best, and that's me being as kind as possible. And look, it's harsh. I'm easily jumping on the bandwagon. He's missed a penalty, but if I look at his overall game today, came on first few touches, he was letting the ball go to everyone. He wasn't playing with that same Darwin Núñez intensity that he usually brings. The penalty he missed, didn't hit it with any conviction. Donnarumma obviously makes a great save, but after you miss that first penalty, you're always under the cosh. PSG tuck away their penalties, comes to Curtis Jones to take it next, and yeah, I mean, if it's easy to say in hindsight, but I think I was saying to my dad and my brother watching the game, the order I'm taking is this penalty shootout is the front three. So I'm going Salah, Gakpo, Núñez, Elliott, and Van Dijk, and I think Jones taking the penalty. I've never seen him as a penalty taker. He doesn't stand out to me as a penalty taker. I see Elliott as that. I see Van Dijk as that. I see Gakpo, good strikers of the ball. Jones is a dribbler. He's a passer. He's not. But maybe I'm clutching at straws. Maybe he didn't look confident stepping up. Well, he's a confident lad, Curtis Jones, but he just didn't look confident stepping up, in my opinion. Donnarumma with another big save. He obviously didn't have the best first game in Paris, but the penalty shootout, like he did in the Euros a few years ago for Italy, he's done it for PSG today. Desiree Doué taking the winning penalty and scoring. PSG are through and we're out. And look, we'll be in the Champions League next season. And yeah, like I said from the beginning of the podcast, we're looking at the beginning of the season. If Liverpool to win the Champions League, that's an incredible achievement. But it's not to be. There's a lot of lessons I think Slott needs to take from his first season, of course. But I think when he looks back at these big games, that the ones that got away where we were just lacking a bit of clinical edge, bit of finishing, I think there is definitely squad players that he doesn't fancy at Liverpool, and probably that question we can have at a later date at the end of the season, because there's still a lot of football to be played. There's obviously the cup final, and I think Slott's big job is picking everyone up. Like, look, this has happened, but we have opportunity to win more silverware on the weekend. Let's go and do it. Let's go to Wembley and claim a trophy that we've been really good at winning recently. Twice in the last 3 years we've won this Carabao Cup. Let's make it 3 times. So yeah, for me, I think Slott has a big job in terms of motivating the players, but there's going to be a lot of questions when it comes to, I think, the attacking area of the pitch moving forward, and also maybe some of those other midfield positions, the fullbacks. And yeah, like, it's incredible that we're in the position where we are in the league, essentially almost title winners. Don't want to confirm it just yet, but we need to take a lot of what's happened today and in some of those games this season where we've just looked a bit flat or not clinical enough, and it's been very few, how we can take that next step up, especially when we're talking about Champions League football. You need those killers. When you don't get those chances a lot, penalty shootouts is always a lottery. You shouldn't really want to get to penalties. You need to finish games before that. So yeah, it's a painful one. Not really had many painful days as a Liverpool fan this season, but today is one of them. It's just a bit of irony that, the last time Liverpool got knocked out in the Champions League in the round of 16, it was on this day, 11th of March in 2020, before the catastrophe of the pandemic. And then Liverpool went on to win the league. So look, there are positive signs. Don't want to be overly positive because I know it's quite hard for a lot of Liverpool fans and obviously for the players and manager. But yeah, trying to find the positives as always. That's what I try and do. But yeah, we've got a big game on Sunday. So in my eyes, this is just one of those games. It wasn't our day. It wasn't our competition. It wasn't our year for the Champions League. It is going to be for the Premier League, hopefully. 15 points clear. I'm banking on it being that. And on Sunday, let's try and get that trophy. And if Slott ends up with a Premier League and a cup in his first season, I'm not complaining, and it puts us in a great position for Champions League next season. So yeah, that is all for today's episode of the Daily Liverpool Podcast. Like I said, Liverpool out the Champions League, PSG are through, but yeah, we just got to pick ourselves up for Sunday. Big game at Wembley in the Carabao Cup against Newcastle on the 16th of March. We'll be previewing the Newcastle game in later episodes this week, but also probably reacting more to this loss in the Champions League. It's been Adarsh. Thank you all for listening and have a great evening.
This podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football, and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network. Every club, every day.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.